Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Azeroth Daily for the 4th of May 2011. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of WoW news and comment. In the headlines today, Blizzard has added some new forums to the official Battle.net forums on both EU and US. They include games, gaming and hardware, movies, TV, entertainment, books and comics, and tech and science. So if for some inexplicable reason you have the urge to post more on the WoW forums, then you have forums in which to do them. Bear in mind that the usual moderation policy applies, and as it happens, they are going to be applying it extremely strictly. If only they would do it to the rest of the forum. The latest round of EU Community news has been released, including foreign language news from Polish site wow.battle.net.pl. It's posted a nice summary of the patch 4.2 previews, as well as the Italian site battlecraft.it, which has started translating the recent updates into Italian, and also has provided Italian subtitles for BlizzCast 16, which is of course a video cast. All that, plenty more foreign language news, as well as a roundup of this week's comics and noteworthy forum threads available in the description below this video. Over on the US Battle.net site, there is a feature called Explorers League Journal, which for the most part just rounds up news that we've already covered here on Azeroth Daily, as well as releases throughout the week. However, if you look to the bottom of it, there are some community things, including a few comics, as well as some music and machinima, which very well might be worth having a look at. So those of you in the US feeling a little bit left out that you don't get the community news segment that we do, well, you can go and check out the Explorers League. That's pretty much it for the news today, folks. It has been a little bit light, and with that, it's time for your Daily Blues. Reptilia finally broaches the subject of why exactly we need to be nickeled and dimed, and this is in regards to character customization, realm transfers, and things like that, and the actual charge of it. Needless to say, people from the forums, because they are the community's worst enemy, happily jumped on Reptilia and said, "Oh, Blizzard is the company, la-di-da." God damn, none of you wants to pay this money, yet you will jump to Blizzard's defense. Why? Because one, you just want to feel better about yourself, or you want to be a white knighting fanboy? Lord only knows. This is the reason I stopped posting on the forums, because people like this actually exist. It is utterly absurd. Zarhym responds by saying that the premium services are added to better accommodate the wants and needs of the player, and they don't factor into what you get for buying the games and expansions, and that you don't have to use these premium services to enjoy World of Warcraft gameplay to the fullest extent, which is of course a complete and total lie. Bearing in mind that Blizzard has on many occasions said that, hey, the best way to play WoW is with your friends, right? Well, as it turns out, there are times when you cannot, in fact, play WoW with your friends because they happen to be on a different server. And no, rolling up a new character is not, in fact, a satisfactory answer. Why would I leave all the work I've done on one character just to go and start another? That is fairly ridiculous. Now, Zarhym goes on to say that everything we do and every service we add costs more money than you might realize. Does it? How much, exactly? I would like to know, because as far as I'm aware, the character transfer system has been open for now 5 years, maybe 6. I'm fairly sure it's probably paid itself back by now. It's so sad to see people leaping to the defense of Blizzard over this. Seriously. People will just do anything they can to try and curry favor with this faceless entity. Such a dumb thing to do. No wonder we have such an impotent community. Grykog posts about the fact that he absolutely loves rated battlegrounds. He likes the fact that there's teamwork involved, objectives, and things like that. Honestly, I'd have to agree with him. I don't really see why we don't get more posts like this, because rated battlegrounds to me seems like one of the best additions to PvP that Blizzard has ever done. And yes, there is an awful lot of strategy involved in doing it properly. Bit of a pointless reply by Slorkers, who says he likes them as well. However, he does go on to follow up when somebody called Laserboss decides to say, well, of course we're getting a GM reply. This is one of the few threads about rated battlegrounds actually being enjoyable. And since they're trying to phase out arenas in favor of the less liked rated battlegrounds, it makes perfect sense. Are they really? Huh. That's certainly news to me, honestly. Now, Slorkers responds to that by saying that, of course, it's not correct, and arenas serve as an attraction and have a purpose of their own. Rated battlegrounds are not attempting to replace arenas, they are an alternative. And I suppose people that are looking to get gear as fast as possible might believe that, oh, well, rated battlegrounds are obviously replacing it, in which case you are doing it wrong, because if you do not enjoy PvP or any part of the game for what it is, then why the hell are you doing it? For virtual rewards that count for absolutely nothing in real life? You're crazy. Stop it. Do the things you actually like to do. Don't do the things you don't like to do. It's your leisure time, and life is far too bloody short to waste it on boring crap. Provoporius asks whether or not the CC nerf in patch 4.2 is the biggest PvE nerf ever. Well, probably not, no. I can remember the biggest PvE nerf ever. It was, we're gonna nerf everything by 30% across the board, across an entire expansion. That was TBC, by the way. Now, Zarhym comes along with, as far as I'm concerned, the most damning thing I have heard from Blizzard in a very long time. I'm going to read this out for you, because I can barely believe it myself. It sounds like you're rocking in this expansion. Presumably, you even have an organized group of players with whom you play regularly. Maybe you can use Vent so that marking and pulling targets is second nature. Perhaps if others aren't on your level of player experience, they deserve to fail. Serves them right. We disagree. We disagree? People that aren't as good as these guys don't deserve to fail? How about they get better? That is the most disgraceful thing I've ever heard a Blue say. That is absolutely abysmal. Unbelievable. So yeah, they've just freely admitted that actually they're not okay with people failing and learning via the failure, and of course organizing in guilds. Hell, you put voice chat in the game. It's your fault that it's rubbish. Like, oh, well, they can use Vent. There's voice chat in the game. You put it in patch 2.2. And yet, still people don't use it. Why? Because it's not very good. So don't give me that nonsense, like Vent is some kind of special superpower that only the privileged few have access to. For God's sake, pretty much in every realm there's a free Vent server that somebody runs. For God's sake, you can come on Cynical Brit server if you like. We got loads of space. Come and do 5-mans here. It's really easy to find a damn Vent server. Oh man, this is disgraceful. You know, I wasn't so worried about this nerf until I actually heard the justification for it, and now that is even worse. That is the most horrendous thing I've ever heard from a Blue in my life. That is incredibly depressing. Okay, folks, after that, it's time for the daily grind. Well, this quest is appropriately titled. It's called At least I think that's how it's pronounced. Whatever the case, after a very convenient drop from the sky of a large siege tank, Bravo Company must destroy 200 Blackrock soldiers. And what better way to do it than by running them over, which is exactly what ends up happening in this particular quest. A little bit of genocide going on right here. Always a good way to get things done. Probably not done with the JJ Keishan questline by the looks of it, so expect more of his antics in future episodes. And with that, it's time for your weekly feature. This is the Court of Law. We continue our series on the subject of capital cities of Azeroth by having a look at Darnassus. Darnassus is the great city of the Night Elves, housing the leaders of both the Druids and the faithful of Elune. It is carefully guarded by sentinels, ancient protectors, and ancients of war. The city is formidable in spite of the peaceful nature of the Night Elves. In addition to the Night Elves, many guests and diplomats from elsewhere reside here, such as groups from the Explorers Guild and the Knights of the Silver Hand, as well as several members of the Horde negotiating peace treaties. In the aftermath of the Third War, with Malfurion missing, Fandral Staghelm rose to the position of Archdruid. He led a faction of Night Elves who could not adapt to their new mortality, convincing the Circle of Ancients in Darkshore that it was time for the Night Elven people to rebuild the World Tree and regain their cherished immortality. The Circle of Ancients and powerful Druids combined their powers to grow an immense tree in the Veiled Sea off the northwestern coast of Kalimdor. They called the tree Teldrassil, meaning Crown of the Earth in Darnasian. The Night Elves made their new home in the boughs of Teldrassil, creating a forest of mighty trees and flowing rivers, bathed in the endless night that fell over the land of the elves from the dawn of time. However, Staghelm's plan to regain the Night Elves' immortality failed, as it was the blessing of Nosdormu, aspect of the Bronze Dragonflight upon the original World Tree, that had granted the elves their immortality in the first place. Unlike the original World Tree Nordrassil, Teldrassil was not consecrated with the blessing of the Dragonflight and soon fell prey to corruption. The wildlife and even the limbs of Teldrassil itself became tainted by a growing darkness. Crazed furbolgs, satyrs, and fouler beasts have appeared in Teldrassil, occupying the attention of the vigilant sentinels and the wise druids to ensure the safety of their new home. The source of this corruption remained a mystery for some time, until the conflict of the Emerald Nightmare spilled into the waking world. In the intervening years since the end of the Third War, Malfurion's spirit had been captured and trapped in the Emerald Nightmare by the Nightmare Lord. With the aid of Tyrande Whisperwind, Varian Wrynn, and Brawl Bearmantle, as well as dragon aspects Alex Straza and Ysera, Malfurion was freed, and the Nightmare Lord revealed to be the first satyr and ancient enemy of Malfurion, Xavius. Malfurion, upon arriving at Darnassus, discovered that Staghelm had been manipulated by Xavius into planting a branch from his Nightmare Lord form into Teldrassil as it grew. This corrupted the tree and drove it mad, spreading its evil to everything around it. The Archdruid managed to remove this influence and eventually restored the tree to what it once was. Alexstrasza, impressed that the tree could prosper alone without her influence or her kins, blessed it belatedly. She and Ysera later gave a second blessing during the wedding of Malfurion and Tyrandia, and the tree flourished even more under the gifts from the Lifebinder and She of the Dreaming, even if still being unable to return the Night Elves' immortality due to the continued absence of any blessing from Nosdormu. Of late, Teldrassil's recovery has slowed, and signs of the Nightmare's corruption have resurfaced. Already burdened by political tension and the vast destruction unleashed by the Cataclysm, the Night Elves must now ascertain the cause of their beloved World Tree's ailment and refocus their efforts on the dire situation facing Azeroth. And with that, it's time for the mailbox. This one comes in from Kirbylisk that says, I was wondering what your thoughts are on the CTA they implemented in 4.1. After reading the forums on its release, many tanks and healers are happy with this as they get a new goodie bag, that's call to arms by the way folks, when they queue for heroics, while technically DPS could get it, but the chances are extremely low. They said it was in response to DPS having a long queue time, but on my server, and from the look at the forums many others, the queue time had already returned to its regular time before the first week of the patch was even over, not to mention the sudden spike in bad tanks and healers who are queuing for heroics using an off-spec they don't understand or have the gear for, but only to get a goodie bag since their off-spec is tank and healer. Many of these bad tanks have caused wipes for myself, and they either refuse to leave, making us kick them so that they don't get a deserter debuff, or, if it's long enough, they will leave because they can almost insta-queue for another heroic. It seems unfair as well as to pure DPS class such as Mage, Warlock, Rogue, and Hunter, since we cannot queue for tank or healer to get this bag, not to mention that not all of us can tank or heal, and would rather not put other people into the position we are in with the bad tanks and healers just to get a BOA goodie bag, but would rather be able to earn it for being good DPS. I know it's long and probably won't make it into your show due to its length. Well, there you go, never mind. So here's the thoughts on it. Every system like this, regardless of its intentions, will cause people to attempt to exploit it for their own personal gain. This will happen, and people will do it regardless of the content because they are absolutely obsessed with getting treats. That is what they are. A lot of the players of WoW are basically like puppies. All they want to do is do tricks in order to get a treat. And I don't really blame them for this because the game's been like this for 6 years. It was praised in the original reviews for doing just that and breaking down the quest content into manageable and appropriately rewarded chunks. The problem is that, as you said, people just generally aren't very good, and this, to me, demonstrates that there is a fundamental lack of teaching resources within the game as to how to be a good tank. Nothing teaches you how to be a tank as you level up, and I do mean absolutely nothing. You don't learn. You can completely avoid the dungeons very easily up from 1 to 60, and indeed just questing through. You are not forced into a dungeon at any point. You are not forced to be a defensive spec at any point. So by the time that you get to 85 and you suddenly decide, well, you know what, I'm going to tank now. Oh look, that's a massive set of abilities that I have absolutely no idea how to use, and now I'm terrible. The teaching methods of the game suck. And let's be honest, Daxari admitted yesterday in a blue post that that's exactly the case. Tanks need to be taught to tank, and of course they need to be appropriately rewarded for that, certainly, and they need to be encouraged to actually do the job. And that's the problem. None of these things actually exist right now. Not a thing. And there is the problem, and it's a horrible problem as well, because it cripples the game, and it's going to cause serious damage if it continues. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest priority that Blizzard should have right now, aside from the content they're already developing, is putting systems within the game that actually teach people how to play it properly. Right now, the leveling content is doing nothing of the sort, and no, clicking on a tank and then running over 200 Blackrock Orcs, as amusing and as fun as it is, does not teach you how to tank. This one comes in from Monkey Brain that says, so it's Children's Week, people are getting their orphans and trying to do the achievement for the Violet Drake, and suddenly there's this hard PvP achievement you have to do. This is really bugging me because I want the Drake, but I don't PvP. Since I don't PvP, I'm not very good at it, and therefore I have problems getting the achievement. I don't like the meaning of having to do PvP achievements if you're a PvE person. I think you should have the choice of switching between PvP and PvE achievements. For instance, a PvE achievement could be to kill a boss in 2 minutes or such. What are your opinions on this matter? Should there be only one kind of achievement, or should you be able to choose which kind of achievement you would like to do? It's very difficult for me to care about this issue because I don't care about achievements in any way, shape, or form, and I never actually have. You know, the only achievements I do, or indeed have other people do, are for the achievement hog. I don't see the point in pursuing these things. They seem to be pointless goals. I understand that other people like them, but Yeah, it's really hard on that basis to actually say to someone, well, the right thing would be for you to go and do PvP for this, or whatever. I don't know exactly how hard this PvP achievement really is. I know I've seen plenty of people get it that don't regularly PvP, but I've also heard that it disrupts battlegrounds at the moment, is causing all manner of crazy nonsense. If this were for anything else other than that Violet Proto-Drake, then I'd perhaps tell you to suck it up, but as it turns out, if the vast majority of pretty much everything that you have to do for the Violet Proto-Drake is PvE, then throwing in some PvP stuff doesn't seem reasonable. That seems like a ridiculous crossover of content that makes no sense. As far as I'm aware, the Violet Proto-Drake is basically a PvE reward, for all intents and purposes. All of these things that you have to do in order to get it are almost always PvE. So throwing you into a battleground and having specific requirements there does seem to be fairly silly, especially bearing in mind that Children's Week is just that, so you don't have an awful lot of time to actually get this nailed down. I would say that serious consideration needs to be given as to whether or not you should have a massive meta achievement that is pretty much all PvE, and then throw PvP stuff into the mix, which will actually cause you not to be able to get the rewards that you want for an entire year. I mean, that's a fairly extreme achievement that you've got going on there. If you miss out on Children's Week and you don't get all the achievements you need for this meta, then you are stuck until the next Children's Week, which of course will happen in 2012, assuming the game's still there by that point. So there you go. That would be my opinion on the matter. That's me trying to care as much as I can and trying to be reasonably objective. Okay, folks, that's me, done for the day. Thank you very much for watching Azeroth Daily. Please remember to thumb it up and favorite it if you happen to like it, and I will see you next time.